This is the trend now, whether this is for Ethereum Alliance or for Hyperledger, is how to implement the decentralized identification. Sometimes we call this as the self-sovereign identity. The reason why it's called self-sovereign, because once you have the ID, you don't really have to go back to whoever issued the ID. It can stand on its own. It's self-sovereign. That's why we can, most of the time, when we're dealing with decentralized ID, from time to time, we hear the word self-sovereign ID as well. So it's DID and SSI. So these are the terminology very common when it comes to decentralized identification. But first thing, the most important thing that we need to do is let's try to understand what is really an identity. So if we are talking about an identity, it is sort of the attributes that actually is owned by a certain entity. Like for example, in our case, we have the Wrappy citizens. So the identity is the identity of the Wrappy citizen. So these are certain attributes that is owned by the Wrappy citizen. So example of these particular attributes that we need to identify that will compose what we call the identity is, for example, personal information. Personal information maybe includes like your birthday, maybe address, maybe your gender, or maybe marital status, birthday, age. These are what we call something like a personal information. At the same time, identity could also be means your educational background, like what are the degrees that you have completed, like secondary education, primary education, or college degree or diploma. This will probably be part of your identity, and that belongs to education background. Sometimes it's also like work experience. What are the different companies that you work for? What are the different positions that you have worked before? And how many years you have been working or something like that. So anything that creates your work credentials. It could also be your financial info, like bank accounts, or maybe, for example, if you have loans, anything that regards to your personal money, incomes, it could be your financial information. But at the same time, it could also be affiliation. So when we say affiliation, it could be your membership. For example, you could be a member of Marco Polo Club, which is from Cathay Pacific, or you could be a member of a photography club or a tennis club. So that is part of your identity. That is part of the attributes that identify you as a person. So we call it an affiliation or something like a membership to an organization. But at the same time, there's also what we call an extended information. This extended information could be something like, for example, you were given by the Hong Kong government a Hong Kong visa. So it's not something personal for you, but it's given to you. So we call it an extended information. Passport, maybe also driver's license provided by the government. So it's something that is issued to you, which becomes part of the extended information. So these are sort of different attributes that describes what an identity is. Now, what is very important is in the concept of distributed ID or decentralized ID, all this information or set of information are what we call verifiable claims. For example, personal info is a claim. Education is also another claim. But we call it verifiable because this can be double checked, which we will explain later on. So if you combine all these claims, so when we say claims, we have the work experience, affiliation, financial information. If you combine them into one single entity, it goes to your identity wallet. So just like in Ethereum, you also create a wallet. Just like in Bitcoin, you also create a wallet. In a decentralized ID, you also have your wallet. which we call the identity wallet. And these identity wallets, just like in our visual, we have different colors inside that represents the different claims, or we call it claims, the different information that contains your identity. So this is very interesting because they're very similar also in concept to cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency, you have your crypto wallet. In identity, you also have your identity wallet. And the entity that owns the wallet, that is what we call the major component of the decentralized ID. We call it the owner. So the owner means he is the one that owns the identity wallet. Okay, so this is very important because we will try to connect the concept later on of what is the relationship with the owner with the other components of decentralized ID. But for now, we have the concept of claims, which are the different identity information. We have the concept of the identity wallet. The identity wallet is the responsible for holding the identity information, and you also have the term owner, the owner of the wallet. Okay, now this is where it gets more interesting. In the previous slides, we have personal information, education, work experience, financial info, extended info. In theory, they don't actually come from you itself. They're actually being issued by somewhere else. That is to create your identity, you have to be issued these particular claims. Just to visualize what I'm trying to say, for example, our verifiable claims are the one on top. Personal information like your birthday. It could be coming from your birth certificate issued by the government. So that's one example. So that means every personal information, it could be from your birth certificate that you have birthday, gender, maybe your family name. It's all inside the birth certificate issued by the government. So this particular claims is issued by the government. On the other hand, for example, education, like your maybe college degree or maybe your high school degree or elementary degree, this particular claims is also issued by the university, or it could be the college, or it could be just simply the school. Work experience could be your uh, employment certificate, which is actually coming from the company where you worked for before. Affiliation could be where the organization, like for example, if you belong to the Marco Polo Club, that means this membership is issued by Cathay Pacific. So whether which membership or which organization you belong, they are the one who will issue this particular claim. At the same time, financial information, this could be probably issued by the bank or any financial institution. The same as the extended info. For example, if you're issued with a Japanese visa, that means it's coming from the Japanese embassy. So if you look at here, on top, there is what we call the verifiable claims that is owned by the citizen. The identity is owned by the owner. Down below, we have also the different institutions that issue the claims. Now, because these are information or attributes coming from the different institution and being issued to you, that's why we have the second component of the centralized ID called issuer. So now we have two terms. We have the owner, the one that owns the wallet or the one that owns the identity, and the issuer. The issuer is the one that issues the claims. Claims are the thing that is inside your wallet, but they're not coming from you. They're issued by different institution. That's why we have the concept of issuer. So right now, two things: owner, the one that owns the wallet, and the issuer, the one that issues the claims. Now, very, very interesting is how does it really works? How does it creates the wallet? So let's start it from the very basic workflow. The owner uses the application, for example, Wrappy application, and register a wallet. Okay, so once the user or the owner, we call it the owner, we will use the terminology owner to represent the identity owner. Once the owner creates the wallet, from the start, it is empty, nothing there. It's just a wallet without anything inside. So the first thing is using the application, it will communicate with the different issuer. For example, the Rappi application, in our case, for example, the application will communicate with the government, and then the government will issue the personal information data or personal info claims. At the same time, Rappi application will communicate with the university node, and the node will also issue the education claims or education data. Similarly, for the company, it will also issue the work experience and so on. Like, for example, membership, it will issue the affiliation. Banks could probably issue you the bank information that comprise your personal financial information. At the same time, the embassy, your application will communicate with the embassy node, which is part of the identity network, and the embassy will now issue with the extended information. So using this kind of workflow, owner requesting claims from the issuer, and then it becomes a claims that goes into the wallet. Now your wallet is full of claims, full of identity information, different identity information. Now, this is very important to note. Why is it a separate claims? We will explain in the next few slides. But what is important now is it starts from empty wallet, and then one by one, you connect to the different institution nodes and request for claims. And then the issuer will issue to you the claim. That's why it's called an issuer, because it will issue the claims to you when you request. Now let's try to take a look at a very good example so we will understand. So far we have two items, owner and issuer. So this is the concept of decentralized ID. So a very good classic business example is, for example, a certain identity owner. He wanted to apply for a job to a company called Power Stage. So, but here's the thing: instead of sending a resume, what the user will do is, using the application, will digitally send the user wallet or the claims to the Power Stage, and then Power Stage will basically verify that in the blockchain that this is a valid claims, this is a valid data that you are sending, and it will either accept or reject. We will explain that later on in full details, but the flow is, instead of sending you a paper resume, you just use the app to apply. It will send a digital claims to whoever is the company, and then the company will verify in the blockchain to verify the authenticity of the data that you are sending. So this is a good example if you're applying for a job. Another example would be, for example, if you want to open a bank account, you don't really have to, again, to fill up another form. All you have to do is the same information. You use your identity wallet to apply for a bank account, and the bank account will verify in the blockchain that you are Mr. Tommy Ong, and you have this personal profile information, your address, your contact number, your gender, your birthday. It's already there. So both from applying, which is you're applying for a different company, including opening an account, you don't have to write separate kind of papers. You only send digital claims. So it's paperless and it's authenticated in the blockchain. Now that's why we now have the third component. See, for example, the company Power Stage is the one that consumes. It will actually consume your identity wallet and then will verify. The bank will also consume your wallet and will verify. That's why we have the third component of identity as the verifier. because they will actually utilize or consume the wallet. So now we have three components: owner, we also have the issuer, and we have the verifier. We will try to explain in details later on how does these three interconnected with each other. But for now, we have three again. I will repeat. There are now three components: the owner of the wallet; issuer, the one that issues the claims; and the verifier is the one that verifies the claims in the blockchain, or the one that utilizes the claims in the blockchain. Now let's take a look at what really is a claim or a verifiable claim. Now this is very interesting information. So what does the verifiable claim contains? So when you send a verifiable claim to whoever you want to send, it has the identity or the identifier of the owner, the one that owns the claim or the one that owns the wallet, and also the identifier for the company that issues the claims. So you have the owner and issuer identifier, so that whenever like the bank, they can verify this is the owner and this is the one that issues the claims. And I will explain to you later on how does that create the trust relationship. But for now, what is very important attributes of a verifiable claim is that it contains owner and issuer identifier to identify that the claims is issued by whom and is owned by whom, and I can validate that in the blockchain. Second one is access and data control. This is very powerful. So if I am the owner of the identity, I am the owner of the wallet, I can control whether I can show all the claims or only show the financial claims. I have control on who can view the financial claims. Just for example, application is if I want to apply for a bank account, I want to open a bank account. In theory, normally the bank account doesn't really require you to send your educational profile. What is the bank interested in is only personal information claims and maybe the financial claims. He's not concerned about your whether it's your educational. So in that way, instead of sending the entire wallet, you only send us two claims. And you can authorize the bank to view the claims. Other banks that you have not authorized, they cannot see. Only the banks that you have authorized to view those two components can see your claims. That's why this is very important for access control. Now, take for example the scenario for when you are applying for a job. When you're applying for a job, normally the company is not they don't care about your financial info. What is important for them is personal information and work experience. Here, using the access and data control, you can authorize that particular company to view your profiles and work experience. Other companies, they cannot view unless you authorize in the access and data control. The last part is even more powerful. This is the schema and attributes. Why is this powerful? For example, if you are applying for example, if you're applying for a loan in the bank, there is a attributes and schema that you can control what kind of information you can share to the given verifier. Take for example, if one of the requirements for applying in the loan is that you must have a bank account with a maintaining balance of 10,000 US dollars, at least minimum. But here you can control that you can control that you don't really disclose how much you have in the bank, but you can just make an attributes there that is issued by the bank that says this person has more than 10,000 deposit. It's just a flag, an attribute that says this particular claims, this particular owner has more than 10,000 banks without sharing the actual amount you have in the bank. Another example for this scenario is if you want to buy something like a cigarette or liquor with a requirement of at least you're 18 years old. In this case, you can authorize the company selling the liquor or the cigarette that is the requirement is 18. You don't really have to share your birthday. The personal info claims can create an attribute there that shows you are more than 18 years old without sharing your actual birthday. So that's why it's very, very powerful because you can customize which information. You don't really have to share everything, but you can share certain attributes or you can share combination of claims to whoever is performing the verification. Okay, that's why there is what we call a trust relationship. Now, what is trust relationship? So here we have the concept of an issuer, owner, and a verifier. This creates a trust relationship of doing the issuing of claims, verifying, and then existing, uh, creating the trust relationship. Now, sometimes this is very confusing. What is really a trust relationship? For example, if I am a company and somebody would apply to my company and he would send that he graduated from Japan University. Okay, so the verifier, remember in the blockchain, in the public blockchain, anybody can just create something like a Japan University on their own and then issue certain claims. There could be many entries of Japan University if you look at the blockchain. That's why in every issuer, as I have mentioned, every issuer are assigned an identifier. Okay, so for example, Japan University identifier is 111. And then somebody submits a resume to you showing that he graduated from Japan University, but if you look at the issuer ID, it's 222. So you know by hand that this is not a valid university because you are expecting that Japan University has a public identifier of 111. Where can you find this identifier to identify that he owns? Normally, that's why there's a concept called the web of trust. So normally, if I am a university and I have the university website, I will publish my identifier online. So any company would like to verify that he's graduate, I can double check that, oh, okay, the identifier for Japan University is actually 111, but the one that I received is coming from Japan University 222, then definitely this is not a valid claim. So I can either reject the application or I can basically accept if I just want to. So here, that's why they call it the web of trust relationship because the more you accept a relationship, the more you accept the issuer, you build up the trust. So for example, the more applicants are applying using the Japan 111, now you know that 111 is a valid issuer. So you will accept the claims at all the time. Now you can create your own profile. You can create policy that if somebody would apply coming from 111, that's automatically valid. Otherwise, anything that is not 111 automatically rejected by the system. So it creates a web of trust. That's why I think in the Japan blockchain conference we hear a lot of things about what is really a web of trust. This is the web of trust. The more validation, the more verification you build up your policy. Which entities, which identifier, which issuer you can trust. In fact, you can even create your point system. Point system is the more points and the more validated points list, it will increase the trust relation that you can establish. Now, what is very important is trust relationship is very complicated. For example, even if you know that the issuer identifier for Japan University is 111, and it's a valid university, but simply you don't accept them because you just don't like Japan University, even if it's a valid issuer, you can also reject. You can define your own policy. It's just your own policy that you don't accept any applicant that graduated from 111. So that's why there's a concept of trust relationship of how you would accept the claims or how you would reject the claims. And all this engine of implementing the issuing protocol, verifying protocol, creating the attributes are all available in Hyperledger using the Hyperledger Indy. And in the next few weeks or in the coming days, we will start doing the actual research implementation of how we will come up with our identity system, because this will be a critical component for our rating, social rating service. So the more you apply for a job or the more payments everything will be added to your claims. You gain trust from Rappi, the more you increase, and you can be verified because the issuer is Rappi, and we have a unique identifier to identify that it's actually Rappi creating the social credit system for you, and it will be acknowledged by all the other companies that belongs to the identity network.